Jace hadn't signed up for parenthood when he joined the Frontier Conservation Corps. He'd signed up for adventure, for the thrill of cataloging alien ecosystems on the edge of known space, for the quiet satisfaction of protecting worlds that couldn't protect themselves. What he got instead were two orphaned Velkari cubs who decided his shoulder was the safest place in the universe. The first time it happened, Jace had been documenting the bioluminescent fungi in Sector 7G of Velkara Prime's northern forest. The planet was a conservationist's dream, untouched wilderness, megafauna that had evolved in isolation for millions of years, and strict protection protocols that kept corporate interests at bay. At least that's what the protocols were supposed to do. He'd found the cubs huddled in the wreckage of what used to be their den. The poachers had been sloppy, leaving behind scorched earth in the body of the mother Velkari, a magnificent creature with obsidian fur and eyes that glowed like amber coals. The cubs, no bigger than earth house cats, had been mewling pitifully when Jace discovered them. Standard protocols said to contact the sanctuary immediately. Let the professionals handle it. But the nearest sanctuary was 3 days away by transport, and the cubs wouldn't last 3 hours in the freezing Velkaran night without their mother's warmth. So Jace had done what any human would do in his position. He'd improvised. The first cub, the bolder of the two, had climbed up his arm with tiny claws that caught on his thermal jacket. It had reached his shoulder, circled once like a dog settling into its bed, and promptly fallen asleep against his neck. The second cub had watched this with wide, luminous eyes before following suit on his other shoulder. That was 6 weeks ago. Now, Lyra stood in the doorway of the makeshift habitat Jace had constructed, arms crossed, eyebrow raised in that particular way that meant she was both amused and exasperated. "You're doing it again," she said. Jace looked up from his datapad, careful not to jostle the 2 bundles of fur currently draped across his shoulders. "Doing what?" "Being their furniture." Lyra walked into the habitat, her boots silent on the moss-covered floor. She'd been his partner in the Conservation Corps for 3 years, and she knew him well enough to recognize when he was in too deep. "Jace, they're supposed to be learning to survive independently. You can't keep letting them sleep on you." "They're traumatized," Jace protested. Even as one of the cubs, he'd started calling them Echo and Shade, though he knew he wasn't supposed to name them, stretched and dug tiny claws into his shoulder to maintain balance. Their mother was killed right in front of them. They need comfort. "They need to be wild," Lyra countered, but her expression had softened. She reached out and gently scratched Echo behind the ears. The cub purred, a sound like distant thunder. "The sanctuary transport arrives tomorrow. You know they have to go." Jace did know. He'd known from the beginning. The Velkari were a protected species, apex predators with intelligence that bordered on sentience. They couldn't be kept as pets, couldn't be habituated to human contact. The cubs needed to be raised by their own kind, needed to learn to hunt and survive in the wild forests of their homeworld. But knowing didn't make it easier. "Just one more night," he said quietly. Lyra sighed but nodded. She pulled up a seat beside him, her own datapad flickering to life. They sat in comfortable silence, working through reports and documentation while the cubs dozed peacefully on Jace's shoulders. It was Shade who woke first, yawning to reveal needle-sharp teeth that would one day grow into weapons capable of bringing down prey 3 times her size. She blinked at Jace with those impossibly knowing eyes, then head-butted his jaw affectionately before leaping down to explore the habitat. Echo followed moments later, and Jace felt the phantom weight of them still pressed against his shoulders. "You did good," Lyra said, not looking up from her datapad. "Saving them, caring for them. But you know what comes next is good too, right?" Jace watched the cubs wrestle with each other in a patch of artificial moonlight, their movements already showing the predatory grace they'd inherit from their mother. "I know. Doesn't mean I have to like it." The next day when the sanctuary transport arrived, Jace carried the cubs to the loading bay himself. They'd grown in 6 weeks, already twice the size they'd been when he found them. The sanctuary staff were professionals, gentle and knowledgeable, and Jace knew the cubs would be in good hands. Still, when Echo and Shade looked back at him from their transport cage, he felt something crack in his chest. "This is why we tell recruits not to get attached," the lead sanctuary keeper said, not unkindly. She was an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes. But between you and me, the fact that you did get attached is exactly why you're good at this job. You see them as individuals, not just specimens. That matters. Jace nodded, not trusting his voice. The transport lifted off, disappearing into Velkara Prime's purple sky. Lyra found him an hour later, still standing in the loading bay, staring at nothing. "You all right?" she asked. "My shoulders feel empty," he admitted. She smiled sadly and bumped his shoulder with hers. "That's what it means to be human, Jace. We form connections. We care, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. It's what makes us good at this, at protecting worlds and species that can't protect themselves. We feel it." Jace finally looked at her. "The other species in the Galactic Council, they don't do this, do they? They don't attach." "Most don't," Lyra confirmed. "They're logical, efficient. They see conservation as mathematics, population numbers, and genetic diversity. But humans," she gestured to the empty loading bay, "we see individuals. We see stories. We see two orphaned cubs who needed someone to be their safe place, even if just for a little while." "It's inefficient," Jace said. "It's beautiful," Lyra corrected. "And it's why, despite having the shortest spacefaring history in the Council, we run half the conservation efforts in known space. Because we care like it's the only thing that matters." Jace's datapad chimed. A message from the sanctuary. Two Velkari cubs, safe and settling in well, already showing interest in the other juveniles. His shoulders still felt empty. They probably would for a while. But Lyra was right. This ache, this connection, this ridiculous human tendency to love things they were meant to let go, it was exactly what made them good at what they did. And somewhere on Velkara Prime, two cubs would grow strong and wild and free, carrying with them the memory of a human shoulder that had been, for a brief and precious time, officially their spot. That was enough.